Hi everyone, it's Jay Egersdorff here, previewing game week 23 of the Fantasy Premier League. New location this week, as you can see, bet you can't guess where I am. I'm in my garage, and that's because there's a horrendous flu bug that's going around my house, so all my family have got it. It gives me two problems. One, I'm trying to not get the bug, and number two, everybody's coughing and making all sorts of noises, so I couldn't find anywhere quiet. So I normally chat to you from my loft, which is why I'm sat in front of that weird pile of bricks. I don't normally live in some strange brick pile. So yeah, got my hat on and I've got my coat on because it's -2 tonight in the north of England. So how's that for commitment? So let's chat about, there's loads of stuff we need to go through this week. So we're going to chat about game week 23 that's coming up. I'll give you an overview on how I did in 22. Let's chat about left field options, the FPL donut and captain options. So last time round, 56 points. So I went into the Sunday, I had Salah captain, I had that strange 3 bonus points for Wan-Bissaka that I'll take. And I had the Robertson who did, Robertson got 9 points. So I was pretty optimistic going into Kane, Pogba and Richarlison. I had all left to play, you know, sort of big hitting type players. Pretty gutted to only come out of that with 9 points. So pretty much kept me where I was at anyway, 350k, around that mark. I think you need to look at it on balance. I mean, Pogba had 5 shots on target, 5, but didn't score. Richarlison had a shot cleared off the line. Kane, I mean, how many chances did he have and should have bagged one? We'll come to Kane in a bit because of course he's got this injury. So I'm not too downbeat. It's one of those weeks. 56 points still beats my 50 point a week target. So onwards and upwards, I guess. So touched upon it there. The Kane injury. So there's a few things I want to chat about now. Moving into game week 23, the Kane injury, Trent Alexander-Arnold injury. The Son going off to this Asia Games. I'm going to touch a bit about Southampton as well. So, Kane situation. People asking about replacements. For me, I think there's probably 4 that you consider. Firmino, Aubameyang, Llorente and Rashford. I've done another video on that for my Patreon people. Shout out to you guys. So if you want to check that out, I'll stick a link up and it goes into a bit more detail. But in short, I think I've seen quite a lot of chat people about Llorente. So for me, I've always been burned over the years when I've brought in the understudy. It seems to work okay with goalkeepers, but with outfield players and particularly attackers, you say to yourself, oh no, the main player's injured, I'll bring in their replacement. It's happened to me over the years with people like Zeko. I remember Loic Remy for Chelsea. So Llorente, let's put this into context. He has played 36 minutes of Premiership football this season. So that is just over half an hour more than the amount of time I've played Premiership football this season. So it's hardly like a glowing encouragement. All right, you got a hat-trick against Tranmere in the Cup. But I'm even wondering whether Pochettino will even play this guy. I wonder if they might go Lucas Moura up front and then behind they'd have Eriksen, Ali and Lamela. So I don't even think he's nailed on. I think the problem with him is because of his size and the fact he's a target man, a bit like Andy Carroll, you kind of like have to completely switch the way you play to accommodate him into the team. So for me, he's a bit of a wait and see. I'd see how he gets on. Yes, he's an international class player. Yes, Tottenham are a great team, so you know, maybe he could hit the ground running. But for now, I think there's more safer bets out there that you can consider the aforementioned guys that I've spoken about there. The other knock-on effect, of course, for that is that most people, unless you perhaps go Aubameyang, you're going to end up with a ton of cash in the bank. And here's another example of FPL that you need a bit of luck sometimes. So for me, I had 2 free transfers last time round, and I had to move for Ashley Barnes. I had Ings, and I would have been stuck with nowhere to go had I not got Barnes before his price rise. So now, imagine if I had 2 free transfers this week, I'd be able to do something with that money. But hey, instead I've got Ashley Barnes. So great. And I don't think it's a bad thing on the flip side to have that cash in the bank. We're in the transfer window. I'm going to chat about this a bit later. It gives you a bit of room for manoeuvre if say a big hitter arrives in the Prem, you can perhaps look at bringing him straight away. The Trent Alexander-Arnold injury is funny because I'd planned to switch him in for Alonso. That's my initial plan that I was thinking about last week, and of course now he's injured. And of course the Son disappearance, the fact he's off to Asia for a bit, means that underperforming people like Hazard, for example, I've got both Hazard and Alonso, they're now going to get like a stay of execution in my team, which is kind of a little bit unexpected. That's quite interesting because I didn't watch the Arsenal game last week, but I was concerned as somebody who was also had Aubameyang on the radar that from what I read, Arsenal lacked firepower and lacked creativity. So going into that Chelsea game this weekend, maybe in a strange FPL twist of fate, that's not actually a bad thing, having two Chelsea players. Arsenal aren't defending great, and by the sounds of it, they're not attacking great either. The other couple of teams I wanted to touch upon, I did watch the Wolves game the other night, and I know they got beat 3-0, but I was really impressed with their application and their attitude and their work rate. And I know it was a 3-0 defeat, and on paper that looks really bad. But that game, Man City had just scored 9 and 7. Oh, excuse me, this might be this flu bug arriving, I hope not. So yeah, I just thought Wolves as a team looked really collective and really worked really hard for each other and did well to come away with only a 3-0 defeat in a funny way. I bet they came off the pitch actually patting each other on the back, saying, "Well done, guys, we didn't get absolutely tonked." So I'm mentioning Wolves because they've got an interesting run of fixtures now. Their fixtures have been pretty gruesome over the last few weeks, and they now improve. Southampton have impressed me, not so much in a defensive capacity. Did watch them last night in the Derby game, but they've actually found a way to attack. So under Poyel and under, I talked about a few videos ago, what was he called? Pochettino or somebody, a really miserable guy. And under Hughes, they were pretty negative, didn't really score many goals. Whereas now, they look a bit more expansive, a bit more ambitious. Like I said, I've brought Redmond in, and I'm quietly encouraged that maybe particularly Redmond could generate some points. So let me just check, has that covered everything that I wanted to go for? Oh yeah, the one thing I did want to say was, unless your squad is a sea of red flags at the minute, it's very tempting, but if I was you, I'd try your best to hold on to your wild card. I think we're going to see lots of game weeks with some teams not playing and other teams maybe rotating because they've got European commitments or they've got FA Cup games, or even, who knows, it might snow in the UK, and I think you'll prefer to have that wild card later on in the season when there's perhaps double game weeks or some cancelled games or whatever. So if you can, try and get through these next few game weeks, or particularly this one if you've got some problems. And I think a lot of people will probably have to make -4s and -8s, so if you're going to do it, it might actually not hurt you too bad because other people are going to be doing it as well. So that covers game week 23. Left field options. So there's a defender that really stood out. I watched the Man United Spurs match at weekend, and I was really impressed with Lindelof. And I know a lot of you Reds out there have been saying this guy's on form for the last few weeks. I'd not watched United in a game that brought him under the microscope. You know, I know you've had some easier fixtures. I thought he played really, really well. I think he's available for under 5 million still. So United have some great fixtures coming up, and they've started to keep a couple of clean sheets now. So maybe he could be a good option. Maybe if you've got Alexander-Arnold. And then in terms of other players, don't laugh when I read out some of these names, but I've put down people like Nias, the Everton guy. Higuain, who's not even in the Premier League yet, and Callum Wilson, who's injured. And I've put these guys down because these are players that might be on the move in the next few weeks or even the next day. We don't know. The point I'm trying to make is that the transfer window is open. So a player that can be completely not on anyone's radar at all, i.e. Nias, suddenly it's talked he might be getting a move to Cardiff, suddenly he gets a move there, and he's in their first team and he's playing every week, and whether or not he scores goals is debatable. But the point I'm making is, you know, suddenly a player that was not so interesting one day can suddenly become really interesting, and this only happens for 1 month during the season, of course, because the window, which is January. So really keep your eye on that, and I've said it for the last few weeks, keep your eye on the transfer tab. The one on the BBC website is pretty good for keeping on top of it. FPL Donut, there's only one player, isn't there, that can get it. Weighing in with a horrendous -3 is Willy Bowley. Whether you thought it was a red or not is debatable, but off he went with his red card. For what it's worth, I thought it was a little bit harsh. Maybe it was what you might call an orange card, kind of in the middle and open to interpretation. But commiserations to anyone who had him on the bench and maybe you got auto subbed in for a -3. That's got to hurt. And then finally, captains this week. It's a bit boring, isn't it? Because Salah is the obvious one. I think maybe if you're in that predicament where you were planning to get him and now you're stuck with maybe Kane and Alexander-Arnold problems and maybe you have to hold off for another week, perhaps a defender, maybe Andy Robertson, bit left field, but Liverpool keep a hell of a lot of clean sheets and Palace don't score many goals, and this guy is reliable for assists and bonus, so perhaps you might want to look at him. And I talked about him right at the start, 5 shots on target against Spurs. Don't know how he didn't score, but Pogba is somebody I think you might want to look at as well. And of course with that you've got Rashford, who's bang on form. Man United play Brighton at home. I know Brighton can be a bit tricky at times, but I think on current form you've got to back Man United. So I'm going to get back inside because I'm actually getting pretty cold. Shout out again to you guys on Patreon for following me and supporting me with that. Big thank you to you, and big thank you to everybody else for tuning in and watching. Have a great game week, and I'll see you next week. Cheers.